Welcome to Signal Post Daily, your human-curated AI-delivered tech and AI news briefing for Thursday, October 30th, 2025.
John, we made it to episode 10. This is huge for us.
It really is, Jess. And honestly, we've got a fantastic mix today. We're talking about Nvidia hitting $5 trillion, a major Microsoft outage highlighting cloud fragility, OpenAI's massive IPO plans, and Nvidia's quantum computing breakthroughs. It's been quite a week.
$5 trillion for one company? I mean, that's insane.
Right, Nvidia just became the first publicly traded company to hit that mark. Stock's been on a tear driven by AI chip demand.
But wait, is this justified or is this the bubble we've been talking about? Because $5 trillion feels insane. How do you justify that valuation?
That's the real question. Nvidia's got 90% market share in high-end AI processors. The demand is legitimate.
Okay, but 90% of a market that, basically didn't exist 5 years ago. How sustainable is that really? What happens when competition shows up? We talked about Qualcomm this week and AMD last week getting into the AI chip market.
Fair point, and you're not wrong to worry about that. AMD's trying, Intel's trying, but they're all years behind. That said, Intel and AMD are making progress on their new architectures. But for now, Nvidia owns this space.
So we're looking at a situation where they're printing money right now, but there's real execution risk on the competition front.
Exactly right. And that's priced into the valuation, but maybe not enough. If AMD's EPYC processors takes meaningful market share in the next couple years, that could reshape things significantly.
But the bigger question is whether they can sustain this dominance at all. Can they keep the performance lead while competitors catch up?
That's the engineering question. Nvidia's ahead on software, CUDA ecosystem, driver maturity. That's a huge moat, but it's not impenetrable.
They invested in Nokia, though? That's wild. Why is Nvidia buying into so many other companies?
Yeah, yesterday we covered how they invested in Nokia, and that kind of strategic diversification is what's getting investors excited. It's part of Nvidia's broader strategy to own more of the AI stack.
So they're not just making chips anymore, they're basically building out the entire infrastructure layer for AI. That actually makes the valuation slightly less terrifying to me, but I'm still skeptical this holds at $5 trillion.
That's totally fair skepticism. Markets are definitely forward pricing a lot of growth here. But the chip demand itself right now is real. Data centers absolutely cannot get enough inventory. Every hyperscaler is rationing chips.
Rationing? You mean they can't even buy them if they wanted to?
Exactly. The allocation lists are months long, so the revenue side of the equation is solid right now. The question is, what happens when supply catches up with demand?
Speaking of infrastructure problems, though, didn't we have another major outage this week?
Yeah, so Microsoft went down yesterday. Azure had a DNS issue that cascaded across Azure, 365, Xbox, Minecraft, basically froze for hours.
Wait, hold on. How does one DNS issue take down that many services? That seems like a pretty basic failure point for a company that size.
Exactly. And here's where this gets scary. It's the same problem we saw with the AWS outage last week. We've got this incredibly fragile infrastructure because every company relies on like 3 hyperscalers.
3? Like AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud? That's it?
Essentially, yeah. And when one goes down, it's not just Microsoft services getting impacted. The outage hit companies way outside the Microsoft ecosystem because they were running on Azure.
So what's the real-world impact here? Give me an example of something that broke that people actually care about beyond gaming.
Well, Minecraft went down and millions of kids couldn't play, which sounds frivolous. But more seriously, healthcare organizations use Azure for critical systems, financial services, government agencies. One DNS misconfiguration potentially affects hospitals.
Okay, that's actually terrifying. So a DNS misconfiguration could theoretically take down hospital systems? Like patient records and monitoring systems?
In theory, yes, if they don't have proper redundancy. And honestly, many organizations probably don't, because they're betting everything on cloud reliability and uptime guarantees.
But this is the second major outage in 2 weeks. First AWS, now Azure. Aren't these cloud companies supposed to be built for this? Don't they have redundancy?
They do, or at least they should have. But the problem is when the DNS layer itself fails, redundancy doesn't help. It's like the foundation cracking. Doesn't matter how many backup walls you've got.
So the architecture itself has a single point of failure. That seems like a design problem.
It is. The scale is so massive now that any small mistake propagates instantly across millions of users. It's a systemic risk nobody really wants to talk about.
So basically, we're playing infrastructure roulette and hoping nothing goes wrong. That's comforting. What's the solution here?
Yeah, it's not great. And this really highlights why some organizations are starting to think about multi-cloud strategies, splitting workloads across Azure and AWS and Google Cloud to reduce single point of failure risk.
But that's expensive and complex, right? Most companies don't have the resources to manage multiple clouds. Isn't that the whole point of cloud?
Absolutely, you're right. It's a huge operational burden. But the alternative is accepting catastrophic downtime if something fails.
All right, let's talk about something that might make us feel better about tech futures. OpenAI IPO. That's coming, right?
To answer your question from yesterday, yes, OpenAI is definitely planning an IPO. Reports suggest targeting a $1 trillion valuation.
$1 trillion? That's more than many countries' GDPs. How is that even justified?
ChatGPT launched 3 years ago. The valuation reflects market belief in AI's transformative potential. Think of it like the early internet bubble, but with actual usage at scale.
But the difference is, back then we didn't really know if the internet would work commercially. Now we know AI works. So shouldn't that justify a high valuation?
That's a good point. You're right that the proof of concept is there. The question is execution and profitability at scale.
When's this IPO actually happening? Can we put a date on this?
Latest reports suggest 2026, probably second half, though no firm date. Could slip to 2027 if market conditions change.
So Wall Street's going to have the biggest IPO in history waiting for them. That feels significant somehow. How big are we talking?
It really is. This IPO could end up bigger than Facebook's or Google's in dollar terms. The market's valuing this company higher than most established tech giants.
But here's what bugs me. OpenAI's still burning money, right? They're losing money on inference costs. How does that support a $1 trillion valuation?
Investors are banking on profitability at scale. Same bet they made with Amazon before AWS became profitable.
Okay, but Amazon actually did figure it out with AWS. I'm not convinced OpenAI has a path to profitability yet. What's their revenue model beyond subscriptions?
The biggest question investors will ask before the IPO is whether they can prove unit economics work. For now, the hype is definitely there, but the math is still questionable.
So we're buying the hype more than the business model. We don't really know if this is sustainable at all.
That's a fair characterization. But to be fair, sometimes hype leads to innovation that eventually justifies the valuation. Sometimes it doesn't. Time will tell with OpenAI.
And if they can't figure out the unit economics before the IPO, what happens then? Does the stock crater?
Potentially. But I think they have time. They'll probably prove out enterprise revenue growth before going public. It would be a disaster to IPO and then find out your business models don't work.
All right, let's end on something exciting though. Nvidia just announced new quantum computing chips at their conference. This feels like where things are actually going next.
Should we make this Quantum Thursdays? Because quantum seems to be heating up way faster than anyone expected. This isn't some distant future thing anymore. We're actually seeing real progress now. Nvidia announced something called NVQLink that connects quantum processors with GPU systems.
Hold on, that sounds like it's trying to make quantum computers and AI chips work together. Why would you even do that?
Because quantum computers are incredibly powerful for specific problems, but they're limited in scope. GPUs are practical and scalable for everything else. By connecting them, you get the best of both worlds.
So use quantum for specific problem sets, GPUs for everything else. Okay, that makes sense conceptually. But how does AI accelerate quantum development?
That's the convergence happening. AI algorithms help optimize quantum circuits, test algorithms faster without needing as much physical quantum hardware.
Wait, so AI is being used to design quantum chips? That's actually wild. How does that accelerate things?
Instead of physically testing every quantum circuit design, AI can simulate and optimize them. You can run millions of iterations in software before committing to hardware.
Nvidia also announced next-gen chips from their Israel team, Bluefield 4 and Connect X8 SuperNICs. SuperNICs sounds like something a comic book villain would invent. But what are they actually for in practical terms?
They're network interface cards that handle massive data transfers between systems. But the quantum angle here is they're specifically designed to support quantum classical hybrid computing from day one.
So Nvidia's betting that quantum plus AI is the next frontier. That's ambitious. But is the timeline realistic?
It absolutely is ambitious. And you know what? After seeing the outages this week and the concentration of power at hyperscalers, quantum computing diversifying computing power actually feels important for resilience.
Is that too optimistic, though? Quantum's still super specialized and not ready for mainstream workloads. Like, we're still 5-10 years away from practical quantum computers, right?
Totally fair. But the research funding and corporate investment we're seeing now suggests someone thinks the timeline just accelerated. This isn't academic anymore.
So quantum is maybe actually happening sooner than we thought?
Yeah, I think so. When tech companies start building infrastructure for something, it usually means they believe it's coming soon.
All right. Well, this has been episode 10, and it's been a wild ride. Listeners, if you've got thoughts on these insane valuations, or if these cloud outages scare you, or honestly, if you think we should do Quantum Thursdays, send us your feedback at feedback@signalpostdaily.com.
Please do. And keep sending those questions and comments. That's what makes this show work. We read every single one. Thanks for being here for our 10th episode.
Also, find us on YouTube and the socials at Red Mesa Studios. Follow and share with your friends if you're enjoying the content.
We'll be back tomorrow with more. Thanks for listening to Signal Post Daily.
Bye-bye.